Welcome back. In this lesson, I'd like to talk about the concept of value. Value is the relative lightness or darkness of an area or object. We are going to look at value and how it relates to our drawing project that we're studying in class. So, as we start talking about drawing, value is going to be essential because it will describe the lightness or darkness of the things we are drawing. So first of all, let's break it into three pieces: lightest, middle, and darkest. So if we look at this simple drawing of these two cylinders over here, you'll see that the lightest value is maybe on the top of this cylinder, maybe down here in the corner where the artist has left the area blank, or maybe even up here where the artist has left the top of the paper blank. Those lightest values are going to contribute to, maybe about 50% of the drawing in this case, and you want to have a nice balance of your values. Now here, the middle section. The middle value is what we would normally consider gray. Let's say it's right in between the lightest light and the darkest dark. Here we have the darkest value, which in this sense is the background. You can see it right here. I've made this arrow white so it would stand out against that blackness of the charcoal. Now, this is a very simple view, and if you look closely at this picture, you can see more value gradations than just lightest, middle, and darkest. But we'll talk more about that as we go through the project. Now, value you can create by drawing many different ways. We're going to look at three different ways. The first one is crosshatching. Here's a very famous picture drawn by Vincent van Gogh, and you can see that the crosshatching here is any time that you take small lines and draw them over the top of each other. So he has crosshatching right here up underneath the postman's cap, and you can see that he's got lines crisscrossing vertically, diagonally, and even horizontally right in that little area. Now, when you're crosshatching, the amount and thickness of the lines will also create different values. If you therefore make thicker, wider lines, they will provide a darker value. Also, if you crisscross them over more times, they will also provide a darker value. So here in the background you can see Van Gogh has used thinner lines and crisscrossed them maybe only once, maybe only twice to create kind of a medium value. Whereas here he's created no value, or the lightest value, right on the high cheekbone of the post officer. And down here where he's used really thick lines and crisscrossed over many times, you'll have a darker value. Likewise, with crosshatching, and as with any kind of art form, the quality of the line that you have, whether it's scratchy or curly or twisty or zigzaggy, will give you different kinds of textures. So our next style of creating value is called stippling. Stippling is when you create small dots which are drawn close together to create different values. So, for example, here's a medium or a light value in the background. Now, Van Gogh in this picture has used little teeny dots, but they're very light in value because he's using ink and he's watered it down. And he's made a nice smooth texture using very small dots of stippling. Now, here you could create different sizes of dots, or likewise use different values of ink, maybe put them closer together, farther apart, and create, a different kind of value, and change the size of the dots that you're using. Also, the amount of dots. Here he's used many, many small ones. Here he's using many, many dots that are some dark, some light, and you can really create a nice texture and a nice pleasing feel with the dots, or you could create something that looks even more chaotic. Now, the last value is what most people think of before they start studying drawing. All right, value where they're just shading, and shading we'll discuss is a smooth texture that creates the value. So in here, in this picture, we have two kinds of shading. One we'll call blending, and the other we'll call graded value. Here you can see that the transition, or the background here, is very smooth. It's one nice even tone of value, and the artist has blended it and smoothed it out. It goes from kind of light to dark in here on this chalice, or on this metal pitcher that we have. The artist has taken the highlight, or the lightest light, and smoothly blended it to a medium gray and then to a darker dark where this shadow is created, and it's blended. It's a smooth transition from one to the next. Whereas here on this cone, this wooden cone, you can see this band of wooden grain is darker than the area of wooden grain here. And that's a banded value because we have a dark and a light next to each other, and there's a definitive line between those. Now, today as your homework, you are going to create this value scale. On the value scale, you're going to create one line that is crosshatching, one line that is stippling, and one line that is shading, and they're clearly marked. It says so right here in the directions. Now, as I proceed through this video, you'll see, first of all, you're going to put your name on, write your section and your homeroom teacher, and then read the directions carefully and follow the directions carefully, please. Here, these three areas should be white, just as they're labeled, and these three areas should be your darkest, blackest blacks. Now, as I start my crosshatching, I like to kind of make all of my lines in the same direction and fill the entire chart from left to right. Then I go back over the chart and fill in the next square with another direction. And you'll see at the top of each little area here, I'm going to draw a little arrow of which direction I am starting my lines. So this way, I started my lines diagonally from left up towards the right. Here, I'm starting left down towards the right, and I'm crisscrossing them over the top. Now, this is a more mechanical way of going about it, but you could do it in whatever manner that you feel is appropriate to your artistic style. But the real key I want to see, and what you'll be graded on, is that each box is clearly a different value. That you have a lighter gray, a light gray, a gray, dark gray, darker gray, and we'll call it black, but we'll call it your darkest value. Probably won't be black because you're using a pencil, but it'll be your darkest dark. Now, as you go through this, please be careful. Please draw nicely and neatly and make sure that each box is clearly delineated for a different value. Okay? Now, as I come through here, you'll see that the darkest dark, I start pressing harder also. I do this crisscrossing up to the right, just like I did before, and down to the left, just like I did before. And I'm pressing harder with that cross-hatching. Okay. Now for my stippling, I do the same thing. And stippling can be, depending on your personality, either irritating or kind of meditative. So you're just going to start making all sorts of dots, and I like to try to evenly place those dots. Now, if you're at home and you want to tap your pencil on the table, that's just fine. Go right ahead, as long as you're not bothering yourself. And if you're at school, please carefully stroke your pencil to make those stippling marks so that we don't have a whole classroom full of pencils dotting on the table, because that can drive some other students a little crazy with all of that noise. And as you'll see, I'm going fairly fast, as this is fast forwarding. But you'll want to make sure that you stipple those in, and then as soon as you feel like you have an even texture, move into the next box, and then just do each box kind of separately. And it's going to be tricky, and you'll need to make sure that you're kind of looking and assessing yourself as you go along of how dark is it, how many more little dots do I need, can I fill the little light spots in, and focus on filling those light spots in as you do your drawing. In the last area here for the shading, you're going to create that value by just gently pressing with your pencil, and almost think of it as like coloring in, like you would with a crayon or something else. And as you color, you're going to color that whole area in lightly, then go back to the second box, or the light gray, and color just a little darker, press a little harder, and then with your gray area, press a little bit darker, and then each time press a little bit darker, filling that area in. Now try to fill it in evenly. Try not to be scribbly, but try to make each section nice and different. Okay? So in each section, you're going to fill in the value scale with the appropriate style of value, and finish it so that it's nice and neat. And this will be due next time you come to art class. Thank you very much for joining me learning about value and shading.